Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Connect to Geek Tech Tips, episode 13 on January 29th, 2019. And we are talking about mobile phones today. But before we get into that, we are going to let you know that Connect to Geek, that's me, we do IT services and support for your company, for your home, for any environment that needs to have your technology upgraded, fixed, done whatever it needs to be done to make sure you succeed on your day-to-day technology needs. So today we are going to talk about smartphones, Android versus iPhone. So let's get into it in a second, but before we do that, if you need help with any of those types of services, including your iPhone, include your iPhone or your Android, get it set up, get it streamlined. In a future episode, we're going to talk about how to streamline both your iPhone and your Android to be the best it can be. You can even take your iPhone or your Android and do this type of work, Facebook Live, out on the road or wherever you're going to go, because we're going to do that next week. We are going to go on the road with the iPhone. Dun, dun, dun. So, if you need any help with that, go to connectedgeek.net, and my website has a little button up at the top that says schedule an appointment. Click on that, reach out to me, and I can help you go through any of those technology needs. Just give me a call, email, text, whatever you got, and I will help you out. All right, let's get into it. First things first, we are on episode 13. Episode 13. That's just amazing. I can't believe I got that far. No, truly, I didn't think I'd get this far. But it's great. So I don't know if you know anything about my shows, but my shows are basically related to technology, just give you an overall help through any of your technology needs. The first series that I did 2 weeks ago, it was about social media and how it impacts your day-to-day lives. And then at the end of that week, I had an interview with a guy named Sean Fair. He's an old friend of mine. He and I talked about how that impacts his business. Then last week, I talked about buying a computer, which one is the best for you, antivirus, Internet Explorer, Firefox, all those preference things related to how you can do your everyday technology, surfing, just do things that help you succeed as an IT. No, you're not an IT. I'm an IT guy. But if you just need to use it to do everyday, surfing or everyday word processor, we talked about how to do that. And yesterday, it's already yesterday because today's Monday, we had an interview with a good friend of mine. His name is Tom Staley, and he and I, we talked about all of those nuances and just kind of give a little bit of history of both of us working together. Kind of got a little techie, but that's what we tech guys do. But if you want to know any more about how I do all this technology stuff, reach out to me and I can help you out any way I can. All right, let's move on to the first slide. You already know that you're a human and you live on the planet Earth. Well, guess what? We're already here, so let's get going. And this is how you can find me at connectedgeek.net. All right, it's the smartphone showdown. Well, Apple versus Android. Well, now, keep in mind, an Apple has pretty much one set of devices, right? They have an Apple One. It was started with an iPod or iTouch, and then it grew into the iPhone 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, now 10. There's a multitude of them, but they're all from Apple, and they all have the iOS operating system. Android, that's been around a long time as well. Both of them have similar operating systems, and if you watched my show last week, you know that OS 10 on a Mac is based in Linux, but so is Android. So these two phones that we use every single day use Linux which is an operating system on your phone. So why do we use these phones so much and never heard of Linux? Well, it's because it's a very robust system that's never really caught on, but it seems to really do really well on your phone. So it seems to do well on computers. Almost any computer you want to you have, it'll load a Linux operating system. Because a Windows machine can load a Linux. Mac machine has a Linux base, but you never really see a Windows phone. Oh, but you have. A Windows phone was a very short stint of, maybe late 08 to probably 2012-ish. They still sell them, but on very minimal scale. People still use them, but it's not even worth even talking about the showdown, because this showdown is between the Apple and the Android. Now, an Android operating system will run on almost every other phone that people use today. And it all started back with your flip phones that had a very minor version of Android compared to what it is today, where it's so customizable and you can do so many different things with it. But it's nothing compared to what Apple has taken that to the next step, where they've taken the Linux-based operating system and made it look and feel like a Mac computer, your Macintosh computer, your Apple computer. So they're trying to do a very seamless transition from when your iPhone to your Mac and vice versa. Now, if you're Android, which is kind of like I was talking about Linux, if you ran Linux and you run an Android operating system, they look nothing alike. Now, Google is trying to do that with the Pixel. The Pixel and has different versions of an Android operating system as well, but they're trying to make their Chromebook and the Pixel have similar attributes. So if you have Android and you log into your computer, log into your phone, and on your Chromebook, those things are going to slowly meld together over time. It's just how they're making it happen now. All right, moving on. So this week we are going to talk about 5 different things, obviously. First one is what we're talking about, the iPhone versus Android. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the top 5 apps that's either on the iTunes Store and then the Android Google Play. Those two, we're going to talk about the top 5 and what are the benefits. And I'm going to talk about like my top 5, and if you guys have any that you like to recommend or suggest or maybe look at, so let me know by tomorrow, and I'll add them to the list and we'll talk about them. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about turning off Big Brother. We kind of mentioned this in the earlier episode last week, and I'm going to kind of go a little bit deeper into it and see how we can optimize I'm going to talk about an iPhone, but if we have an Android, we can do the same thing. So I'll get one in between now and then, we can talk about it too. And I'll connect my computer to it, and we can show how we can work through the turning off the GPS, turning off the location settings, so you can figure out what's best for you when you're going out in the world posting stuff about social media, which is week 1, if you remember. On Thursday, we're going to talk about accessories. Everything from the little popper thing that you put on the back of your phone, so you can hold it, to a magnetized thing you can put onto a case, or a belt loop, or anything related to that. And if anybody has a suggestion on something that you'd like me to review, let me know and I'll bring it to the table. Then Friday, we're going to recap what we talked about, and I'm going to talk about what I'm going to be doing next week. Next week I'm going on the road, and that way we can talk about what I'm going to be doing on the road and how this whole setup in one form or fashion is going to be on the road. And we're going to talk about technology on the road. We're going to talk about how you can do this kind of show on the road, all those kind of things, and how just to work with technology and what to bring with you on a trip. Okay, moving on. We are going to talk about cost. So cost is a big factor when you're dealing with an Android or Android phone or an iPhone. iPhones are expensive. They are very expensive. The brand new 10 is like $1,000. Android, Samsung phone, you can get them for probably $80 and still do the same thing as a $200 or a $400 Samsung or LG. Or that's the thing with Android. You can pick almost any type of phone except for iPhone and load the same operating system, still get the same experience. iPhone has jacked up the prices so much that you are kind of locked into their world. And a lot of people will say, well, you're just an Apple fanboy or fangirl or whatever, and you're stuck and you can't do anything, you can't customize it, you can't do anything. I like the iPhone because it's simple, it's easy, it does what it needs to do, and I don't have to worry about it. If the app that I download, which happens on an Android periodically, doesn't work, or it doesn't have a need to do what I want it to do, and then I have to uninstall it and do it and install it again. We're just moving into the apps piece right now, but the apps on the Android, anybody can make an app, anybody can put it into their Google Play Store, and it's not really tested except for the people that built the app. And you don't know if the app is going to maybe take information from you. Remember we talked about security in a couple episodes ago? There is a lot of things about Android apps. I'm not saying that they aren't secure. There's just some of them aren't tested well, and then you may have an example when they didn't have an embedded what's it called? Flashlight on part of the operating system of the Android app or the iOS or iPhone app. Those particular, at that time, before they had a built-in, turn on the flashlight, boom, turn it off. There was at one time neither one of them had a built-in app. You had to download an app just to get the light to turn on for you. It was really just the flash. She just was enabling the flash as a constant on. For an example of that, on the Android, there'd be 5 different flashlight apps, and none of them would work the same. And some would have ads, some would have things where it would turn off after 5 seconds, some would just not even turn on the light at all. The nice thing about the Apple apps is that they are all tested and curated, and they make sure that they actually work. And if they don't follow a specific guidelines, then they get rejected, and then they have to go back, and the person that built the app has to follow those guidelines just to get it into the store. And then once it gets it into the store, then people can start downloading it for free or buy it or whatever they want to do. But it gets the curation helps weed out a lot of the problem apps that's happened over the years. Now, a lot of people don't like that Apple curates them so stringently, but the nice thing about having that stringent testing, it makes sure that the apps that you're getting are good, clean apps that don't have any nasty pull information out of your phone that you didn't want. Because there was apps at the beginning of the Android where they were taking your information off your phone without your permission, and over time there was like, oh no, you can't do that. Well, they did a lot of work, and they tightened down both sides, and now they're making sure that personal information is being kept within your control, which they weren't doing before. So as you can see, there's a ton of apps on both the Android and iOS platforms. Even though Android has more apps, iOS, Apple has a stronger footprint of apps. what I mean by that is the 3.5 million Android apps, they typically have a lot of duplicate apps. They don't pull the old apps off quicker than, let's say, the iOS. If you have an app in Apple, you have to versionize it. Android, there's a lot of apps that have been out there that are from version 1. And some people think that might be a good idea because maybe I want to install version 1 and version 3 isn't doing what I want it to do, which gives the Android users a lot more flexibility in what they want to do with their phones versus the Apple people that when they don't leave an app out version 1 and you have a version 3 now, version 1 is no longer available. It just doesn't work that way. Moving on to battery. Now, the Android, in my opinion, has the better battery life than the iOS Apple, because the Apple tends to have a lot of background stuff that you do that all the time. It's sitting there just doing its own thing, and there's a lot of background app. It's called, what is it called? I just want to make sure that I call it the right thing. Background. I'm gonna take a minute to look it up excuse me while I do that. Where is that setting? It is background app refresh is what it's called. The background app refresh. So you could basically have every single app on your phone. Let's say you had 100 apps hypothetically, and each one of those apps does something with that social media, with that particular service, and just sits there and just, when it needs to, it goes out to the internet or uses your iPhone to do something. That means it's wasting the battery. And there's a lot of, you can turn them off now. When iOS started, they didn't have this functionality where you could turn those things off. It was just on all the time. And then people started complaining about, well, I want to control what's going on with my phone in regards to how the app is reacting to my phone. I only want it to turn on when I open up the app and no other time. So you can turn that option on and off now, which you couldn't do earlier in the iOS. Android tends to have a really good, if it's not running, and then it's not running. If it is running, it is running. So there's a lot more functionality and flexibility with their apps. So the battery life seems to last longer. And they seem to have a better operating system when it comes to keeping the information, not always making the phone work when it doesn't need to work. So that transitions into our customizable. Android has always been a really good player in that realm of being as flexible as possible. It's making sure that it can do as much as the user wants to. So one of the great features I love about Android is that on your main screen, you can move the icons anywhere you want and just stick them right there, and they just stay there. With the iOS, you have to live inside of their automatic shuffle of where let's say you only wanted 3 icons on your main screen of your iPhone. You can't do that. Well, if you really can, but they'd be in the top left-hand corner. If you wanted to put them in the bottom right-hand corner, you couldn't do that. It's all automatically shuffle up to the top left. There are like 4 little buttons down at the bottom you can stick there, but with Android does the same thing. You should be able to, in my opinion, be able to choose where you want those icons on your phone, and I say I only want 3 icons on my phone, and I want everything on another screen. You can't do that with iOS unless you wanted the top left or the bottom 4. So anyway, that's just an example of how customizable Android versus iOS is. There's just so many different nuances about an iOS that I like because I don't want to think about where things are. I just want to just click to it. Android kind of buries things a little bit deeper, and you still can customize it just as, if not more, than the iOS. But it's just sometimes you have to dig a little deep, and I don't want to dig. I just want to just do, because I got other things I got to do. Anyway, moving on to the next slide. We are support. So if you ever own an Apple of any sort and you went to the Apple store, you would know that there's this thing called the Genius Bar. This Genius Bar allows you to go up and either by appointment or if you wait in line, you can sit there and talk to an Apple genius, as they call themselves, as pretty much as long as you need to. And they'll walk you through any type of nuance about your Mac of any sort, an iOS device. If you want to transfer your PC to a Mac, they'll show you once it's all moved over. You obviously have to pay for it, but they'll show you where all the new stuff is. If you're a Mac user, they'll show you where everything is on the. If you're a PC user and now you're a Mac user, they'll show you where all your new files are, how to use it. They'll take time. I've never known any other technology company that goes that deep into helping you understand your technology, your needs at the big level that they are. Android, I've never known anybody to be as that great with support in regards to. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I've never seen any great support mechanisms behind their technology works. So, I mean, if I'm wrong, correct me. I'm open for debate about that. So, but in my opinion, support bar none is Apple. They win. That showdown, boom, boom, they win. So, now, if you use either one of these, you have the automatic assistant, or the Google Assistant, or the Siri. Hold on the button, hey Google or hey Siri. They just like she just woke up. I don't need you to talk to me. Go away, go away. She heard me. Excuse me. I think that Google as a whole tends to be a really good search mechanism. Really tends to be a really good find things. I don't know if their Google Assistant really is understand machine. The machine language is not listening very well, and Siri isn't that great either. But I think Siri's been doing a little bit longer than Google in regards to the device. Now Google has been doing their obviously search voice for a lot longer, and they're trying to catch up in other ways. But that's why they have your Google Home, and now there's the Alexa, and then there's the Siri, and they're all competing for that voice search space. Everything you say into your device is captured somewhere, and as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, everything you say, do, and search for on the internet, including your phone, is captured somewhere, and they use that data for advertising, for using it to help them sell products back to you. So just be careful what you say into those devices, because they always will know what you're saying, doing, and looking for. So in my opinion, I like Siri because it has it knows me. It does a little bit of learning. I don't think the AI is close to where it will be in probably 5 to 6 years. Google will probably surpass that in 3 to 4 years. So it's just a matter of perspective, as I've been telling you guys all along. It's all about personal preference on how you choose your devices. I like iPhone. Other people love Androids, and they can't stand iPhones, and it's just a matter of perspective. Anyway, it all comes down to user experience, right? So if you're enjoying your user experience on an iPhone, so be it. If you're enjoying your user experience on an Android, so be it. You just have to choose, and if you need help choosing that kind of device, I can help you through that through my website at connectedgeek.net. Top right, and you'll see schedule an appointment. It'll reach out to me, and I'll help you through a decision process with your iPhone or Android. One of the last things I have here is security, and as long as one of the things I mentioned before a couple weeks ago, you need to have a password on your phone, either a swipe or a number or some sort of code that lets you into your phone, because your data on your phone is you. You are an extension of this device now. they most people I know and have met randomly, they don't have this anywhere further than like a foot from themselves. It's right here by the and hands in arm's reach of everything, or in their pocket or in their purse. And if the thing buzzes, or if it it's there, because if it's in your pocket and you hear that fake vibrate sometimes, because you're expecting a phone call or something. Well, that's just part of how important it is in our lives today. So having a passcode or fingerprint or some sort of swipe to get into your phone that you only know what you have and what you know is like your ATM card. You need to have some sort of code so you can protect your information. Especially if it's your company's work phone, they might have trade secrets per se, or you need to have that type of information protected because it has sensitive information about maybe a doctor has sensitive information about a patient, and so there's HIPAA compliancy here. And then if there's some sort of trading with stocks, then there's all kinds of trading rules that come along with that. So it's just important that you just protect your phone. And if you have a password that you save in there, and there's information that's behind that password and that login, maybe just log out periodically. Make sure you're protecting yourself. The last thing I'm going to do, I haven't done this yet, I'm going to try and see if I can bring up a website. Let's see if it'll do it. And we're going to go to, look at that, there's my website. How cool. And now we're going to go to this website that I found, which is kind of cool. It shows a really cool difference between Android versus iOS, and it's a nice little grid chart. How do I say this? It's a I'm going to move my face over a little bit so we can see move that over there. The nice thing about this, it gives us a really good indication of what is the difference between Android and iOS. And remember I told you earlier in the discussion about being Linux, they're both, even though it says Unix, it's still, Linux is based upon Unix. So you need Unix and Linux are basically the same core operating system, if you want to go there. Talks about the initial release, there's customizability, okay? I just can't say that word for some reason. There's a lot. Can change almost anything. Limited unless jailbroken. Now, the word jailbroken, that means if you want your iPhone to not get its updates, if you want it to be able to have the customizableness of an Android, there's this, it's called a hack. And you can hack your iPhone. It basically voids the warranty. You don't get any new updates. And if you ever wanted to go get a new iPhone or get a new replacement for whatever reason, if it's jailbroken or it comes to the Apple people jailbroken, they will not support it, and they potentially will say we'll never support it because you've broken the agreement that you had when you purchased the iPhone. Developers Google for Android, Apple is iOS, obviously. Widgets are just basically little plugins that you can, when your Chrome browser, we talked about that last week, you can do extensions or plugins. Your Android can do the same thing. Android is in more languages than iOS. There is you can transfer files just like you can kind of like with your computer. You can plug in your Android phone, transfer files back and forth, almost anything. Apple, they have a proprietary way of handling that data, and they really don't even want you to put anything on their phone that isn't approved by them. Available on most phones, like it says here, and as I mentioned over here, it's only on these particular type of Apple devices. Calling and messaging, it has Google Hangouts, which a lot of people use Google Chat or whatever, and it has a really good, robust calling and messaging. You can do a lot of the same apps on the iPhone. As time goes on, you can do more and more because they're allowing more and more. Let's see. The browsing is the same way. Browsing is, I don't know how old this is, but it's basically you can do pretty much all the same type of internet browsing. Google Play versus Apple Store, video chat, FaceTime, or Google Duo, which is their competitor, is a competitor to FaceTime. FaceTime, in my opinion, is just the better of the two. Let's see. Google Voice, Google Assistant, Maps, in my opinion, Google Waze, which is Google Maps. When Google bought a company called Waze, W-A-Z-E, and they're most likely in a few years they'll probably just merge the two. It's called Google Waze and Google Maps. They get the same data source to do the same information. I like Google Waze because you can choose a path based upon other people saying that there's traffic, and they'll say like maybe there's a police officer up ahead. You can actually mark that on your map, and it'll say there's a police officer up ahead, or it's an accident up ahead, or there's a car pulled off to the side. Waze is a social-based, social-engineered, social media, social kind of way of crowd sourcing information into your map GPS drive, which is kind of neat. Let's see, this is a little old. This says it's 2017, but it's still the same type of information. Let's see, battery life we've already talked about. Security we've already talked about. Cloud services, it's iCloud versus Google Cloud. Touch screen, and then there's talks about iOS one, which is the first version, which was the iTouch is what it was called. Anyway, I thought that was a neat little website. It talks about the difference. So if you guys have any questions about that, I can help you through that. Let's go back to our presentation. I'm going to put my little thing back over my little circle so you can see where we are. All right. I'm back in business. All right. Do we have any questions? Let's go over to the chat and see if anybody has said anything to us. And it doesn't look like there's anything going on in regards to that. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. You don't need to see that. Go away. There's my website. So since we're already here on my website, like I said in the top right-hand side, schedule an appointment. You can contact us. My website has at the very bottom of the website is the same form. Basically, you fill out the form, and you can reach out to me, and I can give you a call back or an email or text, and we can get you taken care of. So go to my website, connectedgeek.net, schedule an appointment if you need to talk to me. We give services and support for residential, commercial, retail, anything that related to your IT needs. I can get you there. If you are in need of assistance for, let's say, a wireless access point in your home, or if you need help with your computer, it died, I can help you fix that. So I thank you for coming by. If you guys have any questions, just reach out to me and I'll help you any way I can. So Larry Miller, Connected Geek, be excellent to each other and have a great night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you. Take care.